Hi everyone, welcome to Outgrow's Market of the Month. I'm your host, Dr. Saksham Sharda. I'm the creative director at outgrow.co. And for this month, we're going to interview Philip Huey Bonhoa, who is a partner at Slope. Thanks for joining us, Philip.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's good to be on.
So we're going to start with a rapid fire round just to
Okay.
break the ice. You get
Sounds
three
good.
passes. In case you don't want to answer a question, you can just say pass, but try to keep your answers to one word or one sentence only, okay?
Sounds good.
All right. So the first question, how long does it take you to get ready in the mornings?
20 minutes.
Okay. Most embarrassing moment of your life?
Ooh, pass.
How many hours of sleep can you survive on?
5.
The city in which your best kiss of your life happened.
Boston.
Okay, pick one, Mark Zuckerberg or Jack Dorsey.
Mark.
The first movie that comes to your mind when I say the word ambition.
Social network. Confirmation bias there, though.
All right, when did you last cry and why?
I cried over a tragic incident that happened with a close family friend
Okay,
a couple weeks ago.
okay. The biggest mistake of your career.
Pass.
How do you relax?
I cook.
Okay. How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
I drink tea.
Okay,
2 glasses usually.
okay. A habit of yours that you really hate.
Sleeping in.
Okay. The most valuable skill you've learned in life.
Leading by example.
Fill in the blank. An upcoming marketing trend is blank.
Text.
Okay. Your favorite Netflix show.
Chef's table.
I thought you were going to say pass, but
No, no, no.
okay. All right. So that's the end of the rapid fire round. You scored 10 upon 10.
There we
And
go.
now we're going to go on to the bigger questions. And the first one is how has influencer marketing developed over the years? And why do you think it has been so successful?
Mm. Yeah, good question. So I'd say the way it's developed over the years, I think on multiple platforms, that there's been influencer competition. So I'd say initially, where I was seeing probably 4 or 5 years ago, the majority of influencer marketing happening was on, you know, Instagram and YouTube. I think now there's many other outlets where creators are able to monetize, on platforms like TikTok, Snapchat, even brands are paying a significant amount of money to work with these creators, um, on those platforms. And sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Well, the second part is why do you think it has been so successful?
Yeah. um, I think it's been so successful because Gen Z is becoming you know more and more of a mover in the economy. For this younger generation, creators are what Hollywood celebrities were for older generations and
Mm,
boomers even. The type of creators that exist presently, they're able to really define a niche and kind of create this cult audience. A lot of these creators have somewhere between 200 to 500,000 followers, but they might specialize in something extremely specific, such as deep sea fishing, for instance, which is
mm,
completely random. And there's a market for people who are obsessed with deep sea fishing, right? But beforehand, there weren't necessarily celebrity figures that one could relate with or even interact with at a larger scale. So I'd say like that kind of pocket of mid-level influencers that have a really specific domain that they are experts in, uh, has caused I guess just the rise of creators to become like wider reaching. I'd say beforehand the celebrities of the past, they were movie stars, and they were known for one thing, but now there's the opportunity to discover these creators and influencers, that have what I'll call domain expertise. and that just didn't exist before. So the market is much wider now.
But don't you think that because there's so many influencers out there now, it is also a tougher competition to be an influencer? Like, isn't the influencer market saturated to a certain extent?
I'd say that it's definitely become more saturated. I don't think it's nearly reached the point of saturation. I mean, I think there's a lot of companies and startups that are innovating to make it easier to survive as a creator. That if you're not the David Dobrik's or like Logan Paul's of the world, you're able to monetize and make a living. I think Patreon's a perfect example of that, where there's influencers with the most specific niches that are able to do pretty well because they provide value add services for monetary exchange, be it private cooking lessons or other creators on Patreon who will just post extended footage or bloopers of their YouTube content, and they have such a devoted following that people are willing to pay for that stuff. Um, I definitely don't think it's saturated yet, though, because we're starting and continuing to see the rise of more creators, and unfortunately, I think the creator life cycle is relatively short. It's hard to sustain as a creator. I think there's multiple reasons for that. There's like the personal mental reason where a lot of these individuals are younger and they might not be equipped to be able to do this long term. But I think with all things celebrity and spotlight, there's a shorter life cycle for the majority of these individuals, and as soon as one of them quote unquote becomes less relevant, there's a queue waiting of people waiting to kind of like fill that spot.
Yeah, definitely. Quite like celebrities then, because the
Yeah,
comparison you were making earlier.
yeah.
Interesting. So to shift the question a bit, what makes a Bacchus growth different from any other marketing agency?
Yeah, so when I started Abacus, the initial intention and impetus was to service B2B businesses and consumer tech companies at the early stage. When my partner and I were getting going, it was going really well, but we were working with some pretty high caliber, high expectation startups, and that's not to say that that's bad by any means, but it's really hard to efficiently scale an agency and services model and working with startups because there's two things going against you. One, startups don't have the most money, so it's harder for them to justify paying for agency services. I think the second portion of this is the fact that um, aside from these agency like the way agencies scale, I think the costs for agencies for it to make sense. These startups are able to find an intern or find an individual that can join the team even part time at like cheaper cost than the agency. Um, so that was kind of the initial impetus of Abacus. And we eventually pivoted to e-commerce, where we were doing a lot of paid media, and that led us to TikTok, where our Facebook rep got pulled over to head up the agency program. We were one of the first people on that platform. Uh, we're able to really kind of figure out the code or crack the code essentially to be able to succeed on that platform. And I think that's kind of a combination of myself being from LA, being friendly with a lot of these creators who are large on the platform, being able to pair them with the right brand, and then take our media expertise to deploy capital effectively was the what made Abacus special eventually.
So what could you give me like a trick for TikTok that you usually give your clients?
Yeah, I'd say one thing is depending on the type of content you're putting out or whoever you're working with, I'd say that there's kind of two buckets that TikTok content falls into when you're trying to promote a brand. There's the organic side, whereby you have someone who just really enjoys your product and they somehow place it in a meaningful fashion. Repurposing that content is always extremely beneficial. I'd say if you have a brand right now, there's still a massive arbitrage opportunity to do quote unquote do TikTok well, meaning continuously post content, and eventually the content is going to start sticking, and your brand is going to start amassing a following on that platform. You'll eventually find your tone, and be able to replicate whatever that type of content is. And I think on the ad side of things, like what we saw early on in Abacus, what we're still seeing is that a lot of brands are bringing over what they know on Facebook and Instagram to TikTok, which is studio quality creatives. Here's how I'm going to deploy my ads in the ads manager, similar to Facebook. When in reality, TikTok is you have to throw all of that knowledge out the window and kind of approach it differently. TikTok is UGC forward, and I think that the audience on the platform has an interesting, I guess, mental framework when they're on the platform because they're not being prone to being advertised to, unlike a Facebook and Instagram where you expect to see really quality ads. So that kind of presents a challenge and an opportunity whereby you have this very curious audience, but they don't want to be advertised to. They want to see like authentic user generated content. So in working with your team, or if you're working with a creator on the platform, I'd say it's extremely important to firstly make a TikTok that the creator or the person would think would go viral in and of itself, and don't be didactic about speaking about the product, right? You want to place it in a meaningful way, and you want the product's value to be shown in a way that actually entertains someone. So that's like probably the most important thing to keep in mind when making content on that platform.
Hmm. Interesting. And what would you say one should do when they're going about, choosing a particular creator to partner with?
Yeah. I mean, I think this kind of aligns with what I was saying earlier, whereby, you know, these creators have carved out very specific niches and like, specific audiences. Creators on TikTok have a very particular tone. And they, to do well on that platform, you have to post a very consistent style of content. Um, and, that typically lends itself to understanding, you see a creator who posts, let's say have a fashion creator that post videos that would you assume would resonate very well with, call it, 20 to 25-year-old women on the coasts. Identifying creators that make content that you think would align with whatever your ideal customer profile is or whatever your customer persona is, and finding those creators really is kind of the first way that we'll look at matching creators with brands. So creators that create content for what is your ideal customer profile typically does really well. And then I test within there. There's a lot of different beauty creators that um, you know have a specific target audience that might align with your beauty brand, for instance. But their styles might be a bit different. One might be a bit more comedic. The other one might be more DIY, like kind of makeup hacks or whatever that may be. So I'd recommend taking the whole gambit of those creators and testing the different content styles to see what works best with your brand.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that definitely works. And how is it in any way, or if you think there's a difference, in when someone is choosing a creative for Instagram versus when someone is choosing a creative for TikTok?
Sorry, I didn't get the last part of that. You said creative for Instagram versus creative for TikTok.
When someone is choosing a creator for TikTok versus they're choosing a creator for Instagram, what would be the key difference in this case?
I'd say the key difference would probably be price. In all honesty, if you're price sensitive, I think Instagram rates are much more expensive than TikTok rates for creators. You can get much cheaper CPMS on the TikTok platform, whereby on Instagram, uh, it's it's a bit harder to do well there because there's a lot of saturation with creators posting ad content consistently. So what I would look at is more from a concrete perspective, like if you're picking a creator on either platform, first of all, look at their engagement across all of their posts. If they've done any paid work before with other brands, ask them candidly how that's gone. Check out their media kits. Make sure you're just getting a good rate. It's really kind of apples and oranges with the two creators on the different platforms, but with Instagram as well, I would kind of take a similar approach by trying to find a creator that does speak to whoever your ideal customer is. So um, not the not the most like clear cut answer, but I would honestly recommend if you're looking to spend a lot of money on Instagram, I'd make the argument that your dollars can go much farther on TikTok. And I'd also preface that with the fact that a lot of brands, when they hear me say that, they immediately have the assumption that TikTok is this platform for extremely young individuals. But we're starting to see now more than ever. The second largest portion of individuals on the TikTok platform are 25 to 35, and it's only a few percentage points less than their main cohort of users, which is 15 to 20. So definitely don't count TikTok out for that. And the 25 to 35 demographic on TikTok is extremely trigger happy when it comes to buying if you present something well.
Sure. And what do you think of Clubhouse? Is there any of your clients who are interested in, marketing on Clubhouse?
Haven't done any marketing for brands on Clubhouse yet. I'm on there every now and then. Um, when I'm on the East Coast, it's a bit harder because most of the conversations are on the West Coast, and it gets much later here. Um, but I think it's a brilliant platform, and I will be remiss to say that you know eventually there's going to be definitely a strong cohort of individuals that are on that platform, getting paid to speak about specific things. I've already seen brands host their own rooms to speak about something potentially tangentially related to their brand. But they do a good job at bringing their brand into the conversation. But as Clubhouse becomes more and more of a widely used platform, um, we're going to see a lot more marketing done on there. I could even see webinars becoming a bit more obsolete and moving over to platforms like Clubhouse as well.
Sure, I think as Clubhouse takes the mantle of being the new social network in the hood, I think TikTok is going to become more mainstream. I mean, it already is mainstream, but I think
Yeah,
it's going to be more established now that this mantle of a new social network is going to pass on to someone else. So I think right now would be a great time to actually advertise on TikTok or work on TikTok because, the newness has gone from it, because people weren't sure whether it's going to last, but now we've all established that it is going to last. So yeah, that's
yeah, yeah.
interesting. Uh,
And
yeah, go
there's
ahead.
something interesting about the psychology of individuals on TikTok as well. Like, you know, Facebook and Instagram, and we'll just focus on Instagram for now. When you go on Instagram, you kind of know what you're going to get in your feed, right? You know that you know who you follow, you know the
Mhm.
accounts that you interact with frequently, and you know that you're going to get some pretty targeted ads, and they're going to look good, and you're probably going to click through on some of them. But on TikTok, the kind of I guess the way the platform and the application is set up is much different, right? When you first enter the application, you're dropped into this thing called the For You page, which is essentially a feed of people that you probably haven't interacted with or haven't seen before. So there's a kind of this inherent nature of discovery on the platform when you are first getting on, that I think sets up the psychology in an interesting fashion for users, such that if you are able to intrigue them or entice them with the product in a tasteful way that doesn't beat them over the head with the fact that it's an ad, the curiosity is a little bit more heightened in nature. And one thing we see across the board in our paid media arm is that click through rates on TikTok are 2x 3x of that of Instagram, Facebook, and I think that kind of lends to the nature of discovery that I was talking about.
Mhm. We did a bit of research on you and we found out you're a history major. So, how did you end up in digital marketing? What's the story? And do you see marketing and all these social networks from a historical perspective sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, funny question. The reason why I was a history major is because I wanted to get better at writing. I thought, think commanding words is an extremely powerful way to market. And then there's kind of the more macro level whereby, you know, history repeats itself and humans trend in similar fashions. And to look at, even in the past 5 years, the way we've seen people go from, Instagram was groundbreaking in the sense that, people were just posting beautiful pictures all the time, and that led to ads being static imagery. And we saw carousel ads, and then we saw a very rapid transition to video converting much better than static image. And now we have a platform like TikTok where it's even shorter form content than the type of video content that was doing well on Instagram and Facebook beforehand. So being able to step back and kind of identify and acknowledge these trends and potentially pair it with history, I thought was something that would potentially be advantageous. But ultimately, there wasn't the most rhyme and reason that went into the decision to be a history major.
All right. So, Forbes 30 under 30. What's next for you after this?
Um, yeah, I mean, myself and the other two partners at Slope are um, doing some pretty interesting stuff on the investing front. Also, building out some software for our own agency that hopefully we can eventually help other agencies with. But I think aside from continuing to grow the agency and trying to make clients as satisfied as possible, there's a couple other projects that we're working on that hopefully we'll be able to talk about soon, and hopefully people will be able to use soon.
And was there any particular process or what's the story about being in the Forbes 30 under 30? Like, how did you get about getting there?
Um, So yeah, I mean, it was honestly kind of random. We One of our friends myself, a little more context. Myself and the two other partners known them for quite a bit of time, and we have a lot of overlapping friend circles. And one of our friends who was past under 30 said that he had nominated us. Um, I think not a week or two later, we got an email from Forbes asking to fill out some information. We filled out the information, got a little excited, and then I think a few months went by. Kind of thought nothing much of it after that. And then the list came out. We weren't even. I thought we would be notified if we were on the list, ahead of time or something like that. But found out the morning it came out. So there honestly wasn't much that went into the process aside from getting lucky, and thankfully Forbes was able to acknowledge some of the work we've done, which is fantastic.
All right. So the second last question is, what are some marketing tools that you've seen success with in the past few years?
Yeah, marketing tools. Oh goodness, there's quite a bit. I'm a big fan of ClickUp. So for like internal organization, we also use it with our clients. In terms of other marketing tools that are extremely helpful and that we use in our stack, there's a tool called Supermetrics, which helps with kind of automated reporting. Definitely freed up a lot of people's times and have kept things cleaner. Um, in terms of like email marketing, I'm a big fan of Klaviyo and also a tool called Campaign Monitor.
Mm.
There's also a tool called Glock Apps, which is phenomenal for email marketing because it gives you uh, your like spam score, if that makes sense. So if you're landing in the inbox or not. That's been an extremely helpful tool for our clients. And then aside from that, ads managers of all the platforms are things that we rely upon tremendously. And there's actually a new tool we've been using called #paid,
Mm.
which is an influencer marketing tool. And I know our influencer team loves it. So I think that those are the probably the main tools that I'd
Yeah, the
mention. Yeah,
founder of #paid also was in the Forbes 30 under 30, the same list
yeah,
this year, and we're going to interview him as well. So interesting
perfect.
how these worlds collide. So the last question is, what would you be doing if not this?
Mm. I mean, realistically, I would I would probably be working on software or in venture. In an alternate universe, I'd potentially be a chef. I grew up in a culinary family. Worked in kitchens when I was younger. Um, Something that I definitely want to return to eventually, but um, wouldn't want to change much about what's happened thus far because I'm having a blast with Slope.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us for this month's episode of Outgrow's Market of the Month. That was Philip Hui Bon Hua, who is a partner at Slope. Thanks for joining us, Philip.
Thank you for having me. Enjoyed it.
Do check out their website for more details, and we'll see you once again next month with another Market of the Month.